All right. So my buddy gave me an interesting idea. And because I'm a mathematician, right? But on the inside, I love science. There's a little part of me that just thinks about all kinds of little pieces about how the world works. And that's science. And then I was like, well, we did a vibe coding session, right? And that went pretty good on the basis of creating games. But what if we want to make something a little bit more useful? Well, useful in the way of like helpful when we're doing, let's say, science, when we're trying to understand a concept, whether it's gravity, whether it's, we're gonna go through a bunch actually now that I think about it. We can do catapult physics, we can do all kinds of stuff through vibe coding. And now, in fact, I didn't put 4 in here, but we're gonna be using Grok 4 to essentially achieve this goal. Oh, hello there. Welcome to the office. Well, if you like this video, and there would be more, we'll be continuing. But I wanted to drop in, just let you know, we go over a lot of content on my channel, anything from PHP, MySQL. We've got Linux in this corner, we've got code and JavaScript here, and a lot of beginning stuff. So if you're getting into programming, you want to learn more, you want to expand your capabilities, even as an already developed programmer, make sure to like, subscribe, and join me on Kick, Twitch, or YouTube, wherever you reside, and just add a little extra education to your channel. You know what I mean? I got a lot of people I watch too, Markiplier, NSIM, all them. But get someone that will give you that gold nugget of knowledge. I hope I can be that person for you. Thank you, and to the video. All right, so what do we have here? I love the concept, this pretty much verified concept that the human body has a magnetic field. What is a magnetic field? Well, here's some magnets, right? Let's get a little zoom in here. And you can see my bed in the background. That's no bueno. What if I just move my camera a little bit? Hold on. There we go. So, we got some magnets. This is actually a fidget spinner. However, each individual piece falls apart and stays together through the force of the magical force of magnets. So then we look at these materials, these rocks that do this kind of stuff, that all of a sudden they can be separate and then they can combine. But what is a magnet really? Well, a magnet is essentially a stationary object with a magnetic field. It's the alignment of the electrons and protons inside of the material that gives it that magnetic field. But is that the only thing that has a magnetic field? This field is what creates a force between two objects, an actual physical force, and affects them. One can think of like wireless force, like we can connect to the internet wirelessly now. There is information being sent through a medium that we don't physically see, but doesn't mean it's not there. So we ponder and we think, well, what makes a magnet a magnet? What makes a magnetic field in a general sense? In a way, it's of the same variety of having forces around us that we don't see. For instance, I put my hand on the table and I can't push my hand through the table, right? There's something blocking my hand, the surface force of that table. In fact, while I kind of feel like I'm touching that table, my neurons are accepting the fact that I'm touching something. And they're activating based on this squish factor between my fingers on the table. The reality is, well, there's nothing actually being in physical touch, which is interesting. we have a teeny tiny space between the table and the hand that essentially is empty. There's nothing in between, therefore really breaking the idea that we're actually touching something. We're kind of hovering over the table, if you will, but on the super, super tiny scale. So, forces exist in many forms, but they all have to do with a sense of atomic level interactions. So, let's play with Grok a little bit. Let's see. Create, and this is basically how we can essentially start with a Grok, with an AI. I would say probably Grok is going to be the best case scenario so far that I've seen, especially with the recent update. A lot of pretty stable equations and programming concepts. We can use Grok to guide us a little bit with some visuals in the form of code. So we can't tell Grok, hey, show me what a magnetic field looks like or what gravity looks like. But we can say, create a gravitation simulator where objects of different masses are dropped on a surface. I guess we've got to think a little bit scientific here because we do have to explain certain factors. In a vacuum, this is where a feather will not be affected by the wind of its fall. It'll just fall directly. And a vacuum means there's no particles in the way that stop the fall from happening, like friction. So in a vacuum, and we can adjust the gravitational force based on the planets in our solar system, including Moon and smaller variants. Using a drop-down, provide a list of planets, moons, their gravitational force, and then provide a visual, and this is where kind of programming has to come in. We like to use 3JS. It's a very straightforward sort of visualization. And then provide a visual simulation using 3.js to show an object falling to a surface based on those values. So here's one of the forces that we don't see, but they exist. So we kind of get an idea that we have a certain level of gravity on Earth, right? That does change. But we can't visualize numbers too well, not until we maybe see it or play around a lot on the math of it, test it against time, put up a little stopwatch and think about how long it would take. It just doesn't work as smoothly when we try to learn concepts on a basis of scientific mathematics. What's going on, Iron Man? Welcome in. How you doing? How you doing? So, using a little bit of prompting, again, we can't really draw an image or a video or a GIF of this concept, but we can easily let Grok or any AI code that for us. The easiest way to code the information, the equations, the visualizations, and everything would be through an HTML file. So I always code based on HTML, JavaScript, and using the 3.js library to basically give Grok that ability to visualize our concept 3D. So it's gonna go on its round. Oh, it looks like actually it's done. Good, nice. I'm gonna go into my science folder. Let's see, gravity simulator.html. Paste that code and open it up. So here we go. You're not going to expect super crazy graphics, but I'm sure you can play with the prompting to make it a little bit more direct. So here it is. Grok gave us basically every single value if we didn't know what the gravitational forces for Mars and Moon and everything is. It's listed here. Yeah, we can do that. we can do a quick web page based generation. And just to finish off the thought, here's your vacuum, here's two objects, and we can now visualize how long or how gravity will differ based on multiple planets and locations. Which is the highest one? Neptune? Neptune. All right. Okay. Based on current demand, let's check it out. So Grok 4, create the most beautiful website you can imagine. All right, so I wanted to also do another scientific idea. Create a 3.js visualization and simulation of an electron flowing through a medium like a wire, showing its electromagnetic field and having adjustable values like speed, medium type, copper, silver, gold, etc. And direction, because we need magnitude and direction. Let's go for 4. So it does, I mean, when I'm thinking about it, it's not bad. You can use Grok to essentially get a good starting point for a lot of projects. I mean, even if it's just design and visual. So that's super nice. But I do really like the fact that I can essentially create simulations. Because again, like if you want to get an idea about something, let's say you're in a science class or you just have an idea like how does this actually look like when I'm thinking of magnetic fields? We're about to see how it works directly. So in the scientific sense, without a visual kind of support, it's a little bit difficult to visualize what you're reading. And that's the big problem. They give you little pictures and stuff, but can you animate those pictures in your head? If you're not sure what's happening, it'd probably be a lot more difficult to make the images on the book, the textbook, actually do the correct process. One thing is interesting. Nikola Tesla, he was one of those people that could visualize just based on the knowledge that he had. So he had a bit of an extreme imagination, and this is kind of our access to that ability. Having the ability just to basically explain in the prompt, get a file that we can save as an HTML anywhere on our computer, and then open up in the browser to actually visualize that process. So let's do here electromagnetic field dot HTML. Science. Okay. Okay. Uh, weird. Not seeing a very... Okay, great, you're giving me that. Okay, but where's the movement? Where's the movement? Okay. Let's adjust. Let the medium rotate. Also provide a speed value input and show a single particle moving or single electron moving at a time. So first we got to really think about an electromagnetic field. What is it? We're talking about magnetic fields in a general sense. We saw a little bit about magnetic fields on the basis of magnets, right? A bunch of magnetic mediums that already have a realigned set of protons and electrons, right? Magnets. But electromagnetic field is something we don't consider often that even humans have it, which is very odd. Humans have this field around us that is basically prompted by the movement of electrons. This is just how electrons work. When they move through space, they create a field. And that's what I'm trying to get here to show that magnetic field. I'm kind of not really digging, maybe. Let's see. Not digging the Grok website right now. Let's see what the update looks like. Okay, rotation speed. No, no, no. Okay, I'm not digging this at all. Let's go back to X. All right, create a simulation in 3D using 3.js that shows a physical medium, conductive, physical conductive medium passing a single electron at a time. With the motion, display the magnetic field and intensity around that electron as it moves through time and space. Let it be a scientific viewpoint on the electromagnetic field and its effects from, or its existence from the movement of electrons in a visual guidance based visualization. All right, let's try this. So it almost feels like it's like DeepSeek, and I kind of want to try out my DeepSeek model locally on the same case scenario just to see just how much it is better. So let's do Olama run DeepSeek. Hold on. Olama list. It's the latest. Okay. Olama run DeepSeek R1 latest. And let's prompt that same thing. This is a thinking process. So basically a reasoning model is going to apply this kind of preemptive thinking process before it acts on your request. So it thought for 43 seconds. Looks like we're essentially thinking, I mean, it's still going. Again, right now DeepSeek is using my local hardware, my actual graphics card. So let's actually compare. This is what our Grok 4 has created. So I'm gonna basically really copy and paste this. Empty. Add event listener. JavaScript looks good. Imports look fine. Let me see console. Is not a constructor. Alright, so then I gotta tell, hey, Grok, you got an error. Had an error in console. And let me give him more context here. Let's give him the whole thing here too. Line number and everything. And this is essentially how you can code. Like in this case, are you learning anything about coding? Probably not. But suffice to say that at this point in time, we can create tools for ourselves without the full knowledge of coding, which is good, but I do recommend taking a look at the code and analyzing it. We won't be going too much into the analytics or analysis of the code itself, not in the vibe-based coding sessions. It's just to see the possibilities. While it's doing that, let me see what my DeepSeek created. Kind of cut off. Yeah, kind of cut off. An example. This code creates a basic visualization. It's got some odd characters in there. It's not gonna work. It doesn't close the function. I don't like it so far, but it is a local model, so what do you expect there? You'd have to have hundreds of graphics cards backing up your generation to actually get a good set of details. Type error, 3 relative must start with. Maybe I can fix. Oh, no. Okay, it's 3. Has 3 import from K. It says HTML value 1, but that's basically the beginning. Okay, maybe I have to start a new chat because I don't want to go too much into the debugging aspect, not through these sessions. This error itself is basically a directory location. Something's wrong with the files it's trying to find. The code imports 3 from CDN URLs. So it might be some issue with these links that we were seeing here. What it does is essentially tries to go on these websites, and we can actually check manually where these links go to. So there's the code for the 3 module JS. That looks fine. It's loading, therefore it exists. This one also loads and therefore also exists. But if you don't have a connection, the problem there is you won't be able to load them. So sometimes what I like to do is copy those files, those code, into my own local file, so I don't have to constantly go online to grab them. Then you can actually make it an offline application, so you don't have to basically go online. Okay, let's see, I see that. Let's do a little, let's do it 4. Which one you wanted to do? 4? 3D model. Yeah, okay. Create a 3D model of our solar system using Read.js, HTML, CSS, and Node.js or other server libraries. Make it client side only. So okay, I just saw chat. Based on that, Grok 4 Heavy is at $300 a month, right? Yeah, because it was like 3 something a year. So divide that by 12. It gets 4 agents to cross verify. Yeah, I mean 4 agents means basically 4 of these running at once, which escalates the processing extremely for a single question, especially. Okay, so what's happening here? 3 line 1 still. Why does it keep telling me line 1? Let's see. I guess that might have to be a little bit. Well, I don't think, hold on. I don't think I actually copied the new set of code, did I? No, I'm pretty sure I did not. Alright, let's check the refresh. Oh, hell yes! Perfect! Ah, that's beautiful. Very good job, Grok. So it's kind of giving a frame by frame, right? So we've got ourselves a particle moving through a wire. And you see those little arrows in the... Yeah, right? There was this, God, what was it? The freaking... This thing? Where if it's moving forward, the magnetic field is going this way. But hold on, was it backwards? Hold on. Nice though, nice. So this actually shows us what an electromagnetic field. This is the key for the fact of a electron moving through space. It can be a wire. It can be and honest to goodness, I imagine this is essentially what the electrons in our nervous system would do also. On a very small scale, of course. We do have, and this is kind of where I started this idea from, first understanding what a magnetic field was, but then considering, all right, what's the heaviest set of neurons in our body, right? If we really think about it, the heaviest masses of neurons, basically looking at this kind of image here, got eyes, all right, fine, they're pretty small, kind of liquidy, not so dense. Esophagus, heart. And you can kind of see the spine and the locations of those connections. So the heart is one of the heaviest masses and also has the most motion going through it, considering every single blood cell holds electrons, but also as far as the neurons themselves that pass strictly electrons, to have a sense, right? To have the ability for the heart to pump in a specific pattern, like clockwork. That's where the neurons come into play. So you've got the heart as the biggest, and I think I did ask some details here on Grok as I was building it. So looking for a good diagram. So it's central nervous system, brain, and spinal cord. So this is where I really wanted to kind of like, what's the word? Collide two concepts together. The body that we have as a human being, the functions that we contain that are basically automatic and we don't have to think about, but specifically the electrons that would necessarily have the effect of a magnetic field as they move through space. This can be sunlight coming from the sun. This could be electricity moving through wires, right? This is how wireless charging works in its bare essence. You have a loop of electrons flowing, releasing, and as they flow, they use energy to release a magnetic field. And that magnetic field is caught by the phone and then converted, because there's a reverse effect of electrons, magnetic fields, and then magnetic fields back to electrons. So not only do you pass that energy through a magnetic field, but you catch it back through the other side of that form. So, I mean, we can easily confirm that magnetic fields can, I mean, in the basic sense, magnets, how do they work? ICP reference. But electromagnetic fields can essentially pass information. We know this from wireless charging, radio frequencies, all those kind of things. But then we go down to the body of, well, the physical biology. Brain is at the top, densely packed neural hub containing billions of neurons. Illustrated as chains of ganglia, highlighted organs. It's kind of going through those ideas. But then I asked it to create a conceptual demo of the toroidal field. And there it is. I had to modify it a little bit, right? So what's a toroidal field? Well, if we really take it side by side, the electrical field and the toroidal field, it's kind of like a sum of every single movement of all the electrons in the body summated into one factor. Now, I added some scales. Your age affects this field. Your mass affects this field. Your height, your emotional state. These are scientific observations we can do with sensors, right? Now, I pose you this question. Have you ever been around groups of people that vibe? Potentially. Have good vibes or bad vibes. In fact, have you ever walked into a room and subtly, under the surface, it kind of feels a little awkward, right? The environment's a little weird, a little awkward, kind of like a weird gut churn happens. All those kind of effects can essentially be from this cumulative energy that ping-pongs back upon each other and then creates the environment you're in. So an individual, human, I don't have Cloud itself. I basically created the music through AI as well. It's custom made, so you probably won't find it anywhere. I put like pirate music with jazz and sometimes like medieval music with all kinds of little different flows in there. So it's kind of a mix of things I like put together. So it's a kind of reflection of my interests in a way. So the toroidal field, in a general sense, has a particular effect. We can conclude that every single neuron in the body that has an individual effect of a single electron moving can have further effects on our environment, just like a magnetic charger or a wireless charger, just like the wireless frequencies. So this is where I like to pose some considerations. What are the variables? We have height. What happens when you're short? Unfortunate. You kind of have a smaller field. If you're taller, it projects further. This case scenario is simply through the mass. The body mass, the electron the neurological pathways are more prominent in your system. So let's call it a one. I'm about 185. So I'm gonna look at this 185 centimeters. The weight condenses potentially, not sure of a fact here, but potentially the weight can also obstruct because fat doesn't have any potential. It depends on the weight type, of course. You've got muscle, you've got fat, but assuming it's more of the fatty types, fat is more of an insulator. It doesn't quite conduct electricity, so it could impede on that magnetic field. So it becomes a lot more acute. But otherwise, at a lower rate, I wouldn't suggest 40 pounds. If you're 185 and 40 pounds, that's unhealthy. That's very much unhealthy, so don't do that. But just as a scientific concept here, right? So maybe 80 kilograms, 185 is pretty decent. Age. As you're young, your body is more active, energy consumption is high, right? And I guess age of 18 is the interesting value that it stops at, so maybe I should expand on that. But as you get older, that magnetic field, the toroidal field as they call it, gets more concentrated. It can also kind of explain a little bit about old dog, new tricks. The effects of the outside affect you less when your general acceptance of the external forces happen, other people around you. You're more influenced when you're younger. So that sort of interaction with our environment could kind of have a nice little interesting interaction between people that we don't even do on a regular basis as far as verbal communication, physical language, all the factors that involve a communication-based exchange of information. This is just complete silence, existing around someone else, and having a vibe. Call it a vibe, right? Now, let's say we're at 30, 80 mass kilograms activity level, low activity, lower toroidal field, high activity, higher toroidal field. Again, all based on your neurological activity in your body. That's the factor here. And oh, we've been in a positive state this whole time, so neutral and then stress negative. A very strong case scenario for stress actually kills us. The case where stress can cause a lot of physical issues in the body. My mother specifically. She had a lot of stress in her life and she was sick very often. Headaches, everything from headaches to actually getting sick on a regular basis. Stress does physically affect us. And unfortunately, in the world we exist today, stress is pretty prominent. So this was the observation I kind of wanted to do here. If your activity level medium, emotional state neutral, and these values 185 centimeters, this is all generated again just from Grok. And also I went and made sure with one of my prompts here, can we modify the math to match the closest possible values and equations relating to existing research known about this subject? Always want to really follow up with some accuracy when it comes to this. This detail is basically using HeartMath as a source. HeartMath is an actual research space where they perform tons of actual research based on your heart's activity. They have sensors, and I guess they also create interesting gadgets. That's interesting, based your heart and brain. Science-based practice of synchronizing your heart and brain. This alignment balances your nervous system and creates coherence between your heart, mind, and emotions. Interesting. Heart coherence is like an orchestra conductor, syncing all the body's systems. The reason I talk about this is because our society is pretty effed up, pretty chaotic, and I feel like we're a little bit disconnected from how we function on the sub-level versus the interactive level. The non-interactive level versus the interactive level. So that's basically it for this case. I just really wanted to go over that research factor, and like and subscribe if you like this kind of stuff, and we'll do more science and programming in the